Today is a super big treat for you guys. I am interviewing an amazing woman named Jen who went from being a physical therapist to running her own online business that I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. She now sells the Bella Taylor wallet, which is a cash envelope system wallet, and her husband Rich work together. They're kind of on the other end of motherhood and parenthood as almost empty nesters, so it was really cool to hear their perspective. But I'm just so excited for everything that this conversation has in store, so keep listening. Glue. It's messy, it's sticky, it gets everywhere, but it's also really useful. Just like the glue that we need to put together the pieces of our life as busy working moms. We have after-school activities, we have homework, we have cleaning, we have laundry, and, we want to spend time with our kids as well in the process and maybe even have some time for ourselves. This podcast is for the busy moms out there who are balancing work, life, and everything in between, and we all know that in between encompasses a lot of things. If you're a mom who wants to do the best in all areas of life but still have time for yourself, this podcast is for you. I love to interview other moms and find out what works for them, get ideas from them, get inspired by them, and learn, we're all in this together. But I also like to share my own tips, tricks, struggles, triumphs, and share it all with you. So grab a load of laundry, lock yourself in the bathroom, go for a walk, do whatever you got to do, but I am just so glad you're here. This conversation you guys are about to hear has so many amazing nuggets in it. I am interviewing Jen Tesoriero of the Cash System Wallet, the Bella Taylor Wallet System, and she also helps run the Loom Co., which is a home textiles company, all online. She has an amazing story of how she went from physical therapy before becoming a mother to then transitioning to this online business and how she managed it as, a mom to young little girls and now to older girls, and how she balances working with her husband. She has some amazing advice ranging all the way from, working at home with little ones and how to balance that, all the way to, just general advice about overloading your plate. She has a very, very funny story much later in the episode about not baking a turkey. So make sure you stay tuned so you can find out what that was all about. But I love it. I actually wrote down the quote. It was that good. So I hope you guys get a lot out of this episode. Let's just jump right in. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm so happy to be here.
Before we jump in, I can't wait for everybody to hear more about your business and where you're at in your motherhood. But why don't you just tell us a little bit about your family?
Sure. I met my husband, Rich, during our fall semester of our sophomore year in college. We went to school right outside of Albany, New York. He went to one college. I went to another college in the same town. We dated throughout college and then got married shortly thereafter. We've now been married for 23 years, and I have to kind of do the math on my fingers sometimes. We have two daughters. One is almost 19 and is away at college for her freshman year. So it's been a little bit of an adjustment around here for all of us.
Yeah.
And our youngest, who is only 19 months younger, is a high school senior. So she's currently in the process of applying to colleges. So it's been a time.
Right. Especially with a pandemic going on. I can't even imagine your oldest wrapping up high school, going off to college, and now your youngest doing the same thing.
It's not how I imagined it, but fortunately we're all good. So
right.
And then of course, I can't forget we have a 4-year-old Labradoodle named Ruby, who is my empty nest BFF right now. So.
Oh, cute! I love that. Yeah, I feel like that's a good tip right there. Get a dog before your kids leave the house.
Sure.
That's so cute. And then why don't you tell us just a little overview of kind of the timeline of you being a working mom? Were you always a working mom? Did you go into motherhood planning to work? What's your story?
I graduated with a degree in physical therapy, which is completely unlike internet retail.
Right.
So when I became a mom at the age of 31, I already had 10 years of a career behind me.
Okay.
So I had my first baby. And I had, I can't remember. I think I took about 3 months of maternity leave. And I can remember the day that I went back to the office to have a meeting with my supervisor to talk about my return to work plan. I had the baby, I think I was wearing her.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, trying to figure out what kind of hours was I going to go back and work.
Right.
And we had a loose plan before I had the baby that I was going to come back part time. I didn't
Okay.
really dig deep into that because I didn't really know what that meant at that time. So then when I had an offer to go back and work X number of hours, and I honestly can't remember how many it
Yeah.
was, but that included evenings and weekends. The mama instinct kicked in, and I
Right.
just couldn't see myself working in that capacity. So I actually ended up taking a part-time job in another physical therapy clinic across town, which was super convenient to our daycare provider. And fast forward about, 19 months later, our second daughter was born.
Right.
And we just decided I was going to stay home with our girls.
Okay.
So the next chapter begins because just about at that time, we purchased our internet retail business from my brother-in-law, who was looking to move on and do something bigger and better. And after a lot of discussion, Rich and I said, you know what? Let's do it. Let's see if we can replace my salary with this. We'll dabble in internet retail because at that time it was kind of a new thing.
Right.
And that begins the next chapter of my working mom story.
Okay. And that was how long ago did you say? Was it when your youngest was just born? I
So
missed that.
I worked just a very, very little bit after my youngest
Okay.
was born, and she's 17 and a half now.
Okay.
So we purchased the company about 18 years ago.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing. I didn't
Sure.
realize it was that long. That you have quite a lot of experience then. So we'll jump back into your journey throughout being in the online world, business world as a working mom. But I want to ask, when you went from, working at, in physical therapy to becoming a stay-at-home mom, did you have any like identity shift or guilt, or was that pretty easy for you?
That's a great question. I think that it was pretty easy for me because at that time I was just so into being a mom.
Okay.
I loved being at home with my two girls. And I really felt in those first few years that this was the right move for me.
Okay.
Having something that I could pick up, though, aside from being a mom, is what really helped to make those days go by. I'm the type of person that I need to have something to show for what I'm doing. So
Right.
to be able to run this business, and believe me, at the time back then, it was not big at all. But
Right.
to be able to spend just a couple hours a day running a business gave me my own thing. So I think that made the transition much easier than it would have been
Okay.
otherwise.
Yeah, that was my next question. Like, was that really hard? So take us through, where you started. Was it the same company that you're running now, or how did it shift and grow? And, just kind of walk us through an overview, and then I'll pick your brain some more on it.
Sure. So the business as we purchased it about 18 years ago was called, I'll tell you the name. It was called Heirloom Gift Bazaar,
Okay.
Bazaar, bazaar meaning just an eclectic mix of everything.
Right.
And the beauty of this business when we purchased it was that it was an established business. There was
Okay.
very little for us to actually get up and running from nothing. So with this, we also had the guidance of my brother-in-law to kind of coach us and say, okay, this is how you do your marketing. This is how you publish products to your store. We had a really good mentor in him. As the climate changed a little bit with internet retail, our business changed. We started to really shrink down, and we got rid of that bazaar concept,
Okay.
and we developed the website into more of a home textiles business. And that's what
Okay.
it is today. And home textiles is just a very floofy word for quilts, curtains, rugs, table linens.
Okay.
And that's where it is today. We have grown the business. We've developed some custom quilt patterns that are exclusive to our company, and that's been a whole lot of fun to just figure out. How do you design a quilt? What do you do to import it? How do you market something from scratch? We actually have a spin-off company called the Cash System Wallet. And the product there is it's branded the Bella Taylor Cash System Wallet. And it is a specialty cash envelope budgeting wallet that works really well with the Dave Ramsey budgeting program. And this is kind of my little baby, and I'm having a lot of fun with this, working on social media marketing and just really coming into tune with this niche audience of cash envelope budget users.
That's amazing. And I know and love the Bella Taylor wallet. That's actually how we kind of connected was I had already been using it for a couple of years, and you guys contacted me, and I've loved promoting it even more. I was already promoting it before I even knew about you guys. So I think that's really cool. And can you talk a little bit about, were you guys passionate about it at the start, when you picked up this new business, or did you become passionate about it over time? Like, because every, course I take or anything like that about online business is like, always do something you're passionate about. So I'm just curious, since you guys, took it over from family, were you passionate about it at the start, or where did that come from?
I think the passion, and I would say at the start, I wouldn't use the word passion. I would use motivation.
Okay.
We had the motivation to do something and call it our own.
Right.
One of my hesitations to going back to the world of healthcare was I loved what I did. I loved being a people person. I loved helping people with their problems. And I was working in an area of healthcare where I could see improvement. I was working in orthopedic and sports medicine. So I was working with athletes and joint replacements, and you could see progress right away. But I just didn't think that this was the right time for me to go back to that. So to have this opportunity fall in our lap where we could actually make something our own was really, really appealing in the beginning. And then as the years progressed, I would say that we became more and more passionate about our products because we really were in tune to the audience. Okay. Our quilt audience is an audience that we think really values home life, being home. There's a simplicity to that. I also see a personal connection with the Dave Ramsey audience, where there's the frugality concept, minimalism, spend less than you make is really what our mantra is. And just making that connection makes this a business that is really, really fun to run.
Right. And you're actually helping people, like with both sides. Like, you're making a house more comfortable and homey, and you're helping people get out of debt and, with their financial goals. So I think that's really cool about physical products is they're actually in people's hands doing something for them. So is that pretty exciting? Like, how does that feel? I guess I don't know how much you can really talk about that, but just knowing like people are out there using something you thought of and created, or, designed or adapted, to fit people's needs.
Sure. I think the best feedback that we get is the positive feedback that we receive from our customers. Let's face it, people will be very, very quick to offer constructive criticism.
Right.
But when you receive that email or that voicemail or the social media shout out, oh, I loved your product. And when it's yours, that really makes a big, big difference. And that's what makes it all worth it.
Yeah. I have digital products out there, which I love hearing the same thing, or just seeing pictures of them, printables and stuff on people's walls. And it's so cool to know that you're actually you're making money, but you're actually like serving people. Money's great, but if you're making it, doing bad things, that's obviously not fun for most people. But for, most people want to make a difference of some kind. So I think it's really cool that you guys are able to impact people's lives and, be there for your family. So why don't you talk a little bit about that now? You talked about how, you could kind of adapt the hours to work for you. How has that progressed over time? As your two daughters got older, were you working more in the business? How did it change over time?
Sure. There's definitely been a shift. I mean, I'm looking at you right now on the webcam with,
Right.
with Gwenny in your, you're holding Gwenny, and that used to be me. And I would be actually sitting at my desk in the early days with one daughter in one arm. I'd have, I think I'm going to date myself here, but I might have still had a BlackBerry then. And,
okay.
and
not that far ago.
I would be feeding my daughter, trying to speak to a customer, and just, willing her, please stop grunting while you're eating. But that is obviously changed. So I have a 19 and a 17-year-old now, and let's face it, they don't really need mom anymore.
Right.
They do. I mean, their daily needs are there. I'm always here to talk to.
For sure. Yeah. Emotionally, they need
absolutely.
you.
I would say even more so.
Right.
But now, I would really only work 2 to 3 hours, maybe when they were young, when they were really young, newborn to toddler. But now we see a shift. As the business has grown, because I haven't had to be such a hands-on mom.
Right.
And now I'm really able to put a whole lot more time into the business. I'm able to really work on some of the creative parts of the business rather than the just keeping up of the daily tasks. One milestone for this year is that we were able to hire a virtual assistant. I have a lovely, I'll give her a shout out. Her name is Ginger. Yeah. She came on board over the summer, and that's really lightened my load a lot. She handles almost all of the customer service for our business right now. She helps us with our online catalogs. She helps us behind the scenes with data entry. And that's really been such a relief to me to have, so many of those crucial tasks taken care of so that I can, work on advancing the business.
Right. Yeah. And that, I hope to one day get to that point. I'm definitely not there now because I want to do more of the, the creative part and, serving people in a larger way. And I think when you're dealing with emails all the time and record keeping and all that stuff, like it's part of the business, but it's not always the most fun part. So I think it's great that you were able to outsource that. Has your husband, Rich, always been, because you said your goal was to replace your income. So is he fully on board with you, or how was that transition? And has he, did he work outside of the home before, and how did that work?
Yes, Rich, he left the traditional working world about 10 years ago now.
Okay.
So for the first, say, 7 or 8 years, he would moonlight, for our business. Okay. But go to a 9-to-5 job. Okay. And he did travel as well. So it was tough in the beginning. And I think back to those, the few hours that I worked during the day, that was really all about just keeping up, and keeping my head above water with customer service and just, fulfilling these orders and that sort of thing. But about 10 years ago, we thought that, the time is right. Let's both work on this full time. And really, we haven't looked back. We have a division of labor. And
I was going to ask, how does that work as a married couple working together?
It's interesting. Most of the time it works out. He handles much of the data. He's very much a data person. He is our IT person. He does a lot of our internet marketing and purchasing. I do much more the creative side. I handle our social media, customer service with the help of our assistant now, and product development. It's interesting. He has an upstairs office. I have a downstairs office.
Okay.
We tend to meet for lunch.
Okay.
I will text him from downstairs and vice versa. It's interesting, but we make it work.
Right.
And you'd have to ask my daughters too. There's been many a day at the dinner table where I'm sure the eyes were rolling because we won't stop talking about business, but that's
Right.
really the nature of the business that we're in.
Right.
You can't get away from it sometimes.
Right.
And there's a right time. And then we also do take the time to
Right.
put it aside.
Yeah, that's my next question is, having two daughters around, for the infancy of you being kind of, running the show. Did your daughters get involved? Like, did you, how did that work and how much did you tell them about it? Did they, want to go to work with mommy or were they kind of separate from it? How did you balance that?
I think in the very beginning, we separated them from it because, just practically, if I'm on the phone with a customer or with, a product development team, I just can't have them running in and out.
Right, for sure.
And, the few times that it did happen, people are very understanding. Don't get me
Right.
wrong.
Right.
But as the years went by, we kind of explained to them, they always knew that we had a website and they would be able to look on the website and they could match the product to things that we would talk about at home.
Right.
But we started to show them, this is how you work a spreadsheet. This is when you do a Google search for, cash system wallet. Look, our product will come up. And we're trying to teach them the ins and outs of business as well as marketing. And we actually had them on the payroll for the first time last summer. Yes.
I love that.
It was great. They both participated, and what teenager doesn't like to make a few extra dollars? Right. It happened at a great time when neither one of them could get a real job due to the COVID lockdown.
Right.
So it was a great experience for all of us.
Yeah, I think, what better way to teach them about the real world than, being part of your job, your day in, day out, career. I think that's amazing lessons to be learned, especially, at those ages where sometimes they're like, I don't want to be around my parents. Well, there's a pandemic, so you kind of have to be, so might as well be productive. Another question, I was just curious, so when you tell somebody you work online, you have an online retail business, what does that actually look like on your end? Because I think, people throw around those words, but people are like, I don't really know what that looks like. Are you actually shipping things yourself, or is that all done for you, or has that evolved over time? What are your actual tasks on a weekly basis?
Shipping has evolved over time. We used to ship everything out of the basement of our home.
Okay.
And that would take up, just really a good portion of my time in the early days. Yeah. We then started to use a warehouse that is located about 45 minutes away from here. Okay. And we store a lot of our inventory there. We've been using the warehouse to do our shipping for us the past couple of years, and that's worked out great. It's close enough that if there's ever a problem, we can get there, but It's worked out great. So there really hasn't been a problem. And we also have a supplier in the United States here that warehouses for us, and they do drop ship for us. So if a customer places an order from our website, and if we don't hold that piece in inventory, we notify this company, they will ship the order on our behalf.
Okay.
We also sell on Amazon, and we utilize their warehouse for a vast majority of our inventory right now.
Yeah, that makes it, I'm sure, a lot easier than trying to do it all. And with Amazon, they handle a lot of the stuff too, like customer service too. Is that correct? Okay.
They do.
And talk to me a little bit more about the Bella Taylor wallet and how that kind of came to be with you guys. Because I know I have a little bit of knowledge about it, having talked to you before, but just kind of talk, because I think a lot of the people who are listening probably have seen that I've talked about that. And if they know Dave Ramsey, I think a lot of women know about your wallet. So just kind of talk through how that came to be your product.
Sure. So several years ago now, we were selling the cash system wallet that was supplied to us by this vendor. And the cash system wallet was just one piece in a line of many different handbags that they manufactured. And we just saw that, with the marketing of this wallet for cash envelope budgeting, we saw that there was an audience out there and sales were picking up and picking up. And about that time, the manufacturer said, I think we're going to discontinue this wallet. And that's where Rich and I looked at each other and we said, wow, this is really unfortunate, but we spun it around and we said, wow, this is really an opportunity for us. So we have since, we now have a deal with the manufacturer that we are the exclusive, we have an exclusive deal to sell the Bill of Taylor cash system wallet. And we have since separated the wallet from our main website. We've given it its own website. We've given it its own social media channels, and it's really taken off.
Yeah.
And in that time, what we've done is we've made several changes to the wallet. We're constantly looking at, one of the things that I like to do is look at the comments that people post on both Amazon and on our website and on social media. I like to hear the good, but I also like to hear the bad, as difficult as it is.
Right.
Because we've made several iterations to the wallet in response to these comments that we, one comment here and there about, this isn't quite right. We don't really think anything of it. But
right.
when a handful of people say, you could do this a little bit better, it made a light bulb go off. And we've worked with our designers and we've made several iterations to the wallet, which we're really happy about now.
That's awesome. Yeah. And like I said, I use it and I love it. I've had the older version and I now use the newer version every day and I love it. So I will have links to all those in the show notes for anybody interested. And I will have links to your other home textiles business as well. So people can check that out. Cause I think, it's really interesting for people, especially who, if they're not a working mom right now, they're a stay-at-home mom, or if they're in a job that they don't like, but maybe they want to sell products or have some kind of online business. I think it can be really cool to kind of check out how other people are doing it. So what would you say has been, some of the benefits of your particular business as a working mom? Like, what are some of the benefits over, working outside of the home or even strictly staying at home and not working?
I think the absolute benefits are flexibility and balance. And I know that's so cliche, but it's so true.
Right.
We, for the most part, have the ability to structure our day. When the girls were younger, I had the freedom to be able to volunteer at schools and accompany them on field trips and volunteer at the dance studio. In a couple hours now, my daughter, who is still in high school, will be playing in the volleyball championships for their league. So
awesome. That's amazing.
I'm really fortunate to be able to, put a pause on my work day, step away, participate in these events, and then go back. And it's not that I'm taking away from my work. I get up at the crack of dawn to get many tasks done. I'm one of those morning people, like you. Yep. And you'll see the light on in my office after dinner every evening. It's not a traditional schedule, but it's what works for us.
And then what would you say are some of the struggles of your job compared to working outside the home? And I know that's very general because there's so many ways you can work outside the home. Sure. But if you maybe were still doing physical therapy, what are some of the benefits struggles of what you're doing now compared to that?
I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. Physical therapy is such a people-friendly job. And I do miss that social contact.
For sure. Yeah, I bet.
And so, you have to find that in this world where, really people ask us, has COVID affected your work situation at all? Well, not really, because I work from home
Right.
and I'm still at home doing, many of the same things I do every day. So you do need to seek that social contact.
Hmm.
One challenge that I think is, expanding upon that, I think that my situation is unique in that I've had very little colleague support.
Right.
Especially starting out, I had friends that were working traditional 9 to 5 jobs and friends that were stay at home moms. There were very few that had a mix of both.
Right.
And there were very few that were a work from home mom and entrepreneur, if I can use that
Right.
word.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so in trying to explain what I did, I felt that it was very difficult for people to understand what's really
Right.
going on behind the scenes. So, and I'll tell you, Sarah, one of the things that drew me into your work life glue and your new projects and your podcasts, I can't help but think to myself that, gosh, if I had this like 10 or 15 years ago, how would that have changed things? I think it's just a
Mm.
great, great community that you're developing.
Thank you. You're making me tear up.
Oh,
Thank you. That's the whole goal. Because I feel like they're busy. Moms are already so busy, but working moms don't have, especially if they're working outside the home, don't have the flexibility to be on a podcast all the time talking about it. So I'm like, well, what can I do to help? Because I just am so passionate about, getting people's messages out there and helping working moms. I love stay-at-home moms too. I'm not against them at all, but I just always felt like there was just, like you said, like, where are the resources for us moms who are out working? There aren't a lot. There's a
right.
lot for stay-at-home moms, I feel like, for a community, but working moms, I feel like it's harder even in today's day and age, much less, 20 plus years ago. I can't even imagine back when you started. Yeah, probably people looked at you like, what is she talking
Right.
about? Like, online, like, that's it wasn't brand new then, but it was a lot newer than it is now, and people still look at me weird. So I can't even imagine when you started. Um, Thinking about, the women listening, that was a great segue. If a woman is listening and saying, I really want to do that. I want to do something like that. I want to create products and have them affecting people's daily lives. And if they don't have a mentor or a family member to, hand the business down to them, what advice would you give? And I know a lot has probably changed online. We have social media now. That's a huge piece of business. But what advice would you give to somebody kind of on the fence about that, starting out something similar to what you're doing?
Right. That's a great question. I think the best advice I could give is to really dig deep and find a product that you want to sell and then research the market. I
Okay.
kind of made reference to this before. Read online reviews of competitors' products to see what they're doing right as well as what they're doing wrong. And
Okay.
maybe really look at what they're doing wrong and see, what could I do to make this better?
Okay.
One thing that we did in the early days was we attended a lot of trade shows to see the trends in the industry
Okay.
and to see what's out there. For us, textiles, you can get a good idea of styles. What kind of things are people putting on their beds? What kind of pillows are people making? What are the trendy colors? That kind of thing. And then I think, you don't want to bite off more than you can chew.
Right.
One thing that I would recommend is for people to find a product and even take products from your home and start selling it on eBay.
Okay.
If you were to start even with your used items, baby clothes or, baby gear, something like that, it's a great on-ramp to internet retail
Yeah.
because it's not just about the sale. It's figuring out how to actually list that product, how to write the good copy to communicate the pros. Why should someone buy this product from you? What's the value to the customer? You have to learn how to take photography that will sell the product. And then you have to learn how to ship
Right.
and figure out, you can't just go to the post office with everything. If you really want
Right.
to, look at your margins, you have to figure out what's the best carrier and the
Right.
best way to ship things. And then the other thing with selling on eBay or any of these other, or Amazon, is that you are somewhat accountable. You have seller ratings, and
Right.
people will tell you if you're doing a good job or not.
Right.
And then, you can find either someone who manufactures a product. You could go and try to find someone to manufacture directly for you and take off with it.
So, as we start to wrap up, as a working from home mom, how have you been able to balance that? Because you talked about, trying to create separation when they were littler. Did you ever find it kind of overtaking your day when they're awake, and not having as much time for friends, or maybe you were able to really build that in? Was that a struggle for you, or was it pretty manageable from the beginning?
I think in the beginning it was actually somewhat manageable,
Okay.
because because the business was not that big and it was pretty much already established. We had accounts to do, shipping for us, and we kind
Right.
of knew what we were doing. So I kind of had some boundaries there with the business, and I was able to do the play dates and do the activities with my girls. And as we discussed before, as there was a shift when they went to school full time, I had more time, and I was able to put more time into the business. And now, you know what? I can't remember what your question was.
Just finding, balance. Was it hard?
Right.
And did it ever kind of overtake your day having a business at home?
Right, right. I don't think that I ever felt completely overtaken. There was a transition period, and honestly, I think I'm still coming out of it right now, where I actually have the gift of time right now. And it's more about, okay, what am I going to do in this time to really make a difference and move the needle for the business?
Right.
And I'm still working on that. We're at a season in our life right now too, where so much of our time was put into our girls and their activities and their sports and their dance. And, as sad as it is to say, that's kind of going away now. So we're going to have to make a shift with our social connections, as we enter this new empty nest phase.
Right.
But I actually feel good about it. And I think one of the things that I've done over the past year or two is to really think, with Rich's help, what direction do we want this business to go in? And just having something like that established that we can build upon is a big relief to me, because when we drop off daughter number 2 at college next fall, and if I didn't have a business, I think I would really not be in a good place.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that makes sense. And I just love hearing you kind of on the other end of motherhood journey. You're definitely not at the end, but
right.
Getting closer to being an empty nester, like you have time, like that's reassuring to hear, on the other end where like I'm wearing my baby trying to keep her from crying while we're talking. And, you've been there, you've been in the trenches, and now you're kind of reaping the rewards of that. But it's also, I'm sure, bittersweet. Is there any advice you would give, looking back? And I am sure, you said you're so grateful to have your business. Is there any advice you would give to moms, like still at the beginning stages, who want to jump into something but are fearful, knowing now you're so grateful? Would you tell them to take that plunge, or would you, say play it safe, or, what advice would you give?
I would say do not play it safe. I would say, yeah, I think if you stay within your comfort zone, then you're kind of limiting your growth.
Yeah.
I would also say don't bite off more than you can chew. I would say, do your research, start small, and you can always build upon it. For me, it was very important to stay home and experience childhood with my girls. And I wouldn't change that for the world.
Right.
And the only other little bit of advice I would give is to, especially in those younger years, take time for yourself, do something for yourself, concentrate, do one little thing every day that is self-care, because that is really what helped me more so now than then. I didn't take as much time back then, but
Right.
it really helps my days to just be more focused and just not so stressed.
Right. And I think it's great too. Like you started out only a few hours and you're able to, scale that now. But if you hadn't started at all, you'd be at the beginning or starting something completely new. So I of course totally agree with you. Like just, if you have a dream in your heart when you're wherever you are in motherhood, you don't, even if you're at the end of motherhood, it's not too late, just jump in. And I don't think anybody would ever regret trying. I know I've built this very slowly over time, and it's still little chunks of my day now with baby 3. It's going to be a few years before I don't have any kids in the house, from 8 to 3 or whatever. But I think you really hit it home that you just do it with the time you have, but also make time for the things that matter. Don't let it completely overtake, because you might look back and regret that you didn't have that time when they were really little. Okay, so moving on to one of my favorite segments, which is a mama survival tip, something that has helped you as a mom that you think might, be a good advice for other moms listening.
Well, this is going to sound funny, but I'm going to let you all in on a family joke. And my advice is don't make a turkey. Okay.
Okay.
This is really big picture. And it's a family joke that I've always been known to bite off more than I can chew. I will pack a weekend full of work and exercise and home projects, grocery shopping, social engagements. And there was one weekend that I did that and I was feeling it. And, when mama feels it, sometimes the rest of the family feels it. And I said, wait a minute, I was going to make a turkey for dinner. And my husband just stopped what he was doing and said, Jen, what are you talking about? So, yeah, maybe I was a little bit of an overachiever. I was trying to, I was definitely biting off more than I can chew. And in retrospect, take it easy. For me, don't bite off more than you can chew. I want to feel good about the things that I do accomplish. And I just have to keep telling myself, and it's becoming easier. It's quality over quantity.
Right.
And you can have a to-do list a mile long and you can check off all those boxes. But if you're not doing a great job with each of those, for me at least, that's what matters. I want to do a good job about the quality of the work that I'm putting out there. So don't make a turkey.
I love that. I love that so much. I'm going to write that down because I feel like you just described me. And I'm sure, especially, working moms who work outside the home, the days they are home, they're just like, okay, I got to fit in family time. I got to do this. I got to do that. And the other thing, like I had a small mental breakdown last weekend because I was cleaning the toilet and I'm like, I just keep seeing dirty things. And I just couldn't even keep going. So I'm like, there's no end to cleaning, but I gotta think the big picture. Like it's okay. Right. It's okay if there's a little dust here and there. My family matters more. The turkey isn't that important, as long as they're getting fed. I just think that's so funny. I love that. And then what would you say is something in your life that has, earned the mama seal of approval for you that you think might be helpful for other moms?
Sure. This is not the most unique thing, but I'm absolutely in love with Google Calendar. I combine my personal calendar, my husband's calendar, my assistant's calendar, and our general business calendar all in one for a big picture view that I look at pretty much 12 times a day.
Yeah.
I love that it's color coded and it's really like my black book that is with me on every device always. So I'll give a shout out to Google Calendar.
Yeah, I love that. And is your husband pretty good about entering things and stuff like that? Are you guys on the same page with it?
He is. He's pretty good about that. He keeps his a little bit more minimal than I do. I have been known to schedule my day, but anything important, he's pretty good about entering
That's
it.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think for me too, it's like whatever I can do that's easy for my husband, to actually follow through with, because he's not the type A like I am. And I feel like a lot of moms kind of become type A because you just kind of have to keep track of so much. But I think that can be really helpful for a lot of moms to look into, if they are doing like a paper planner or whatever, they can think about, how could they adapt it so that it can be helpful for the whole family, especially as their kids get older and stuff like that. Well, I have enjoyed talking to you so much. Thank you for coming on the podcast. And why don't you share where people can find more information about your businesses?
Sure. Sarah, thank you so much for having me. If anyone wants to check it out, we have 2 websites. The first is thebitloom.com, and the Bella Taylor Cash System Wallet can be seen at cashsystemwallet.com.
Awesome. And I know you guys have a lot of great tips and stuff for the Cash System Wallet on Instagram. So make sure I'll have all the information in the show notes so you guys can find that. But it's been the Cash System Wallet has been such a blessing to our family. So if you are interested in checking that out, I definitely would encourage you to. It's very high quality and beautiful, and you aren't paying me to say that. I just absolutely love it. So I just appreciate you sharing your knowledge of motherhood and the business world with us. And I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah.
Wow, I just absolutely love chatting with other moms. And it was so cool to hear Jen's perspective on business and being a mom who's kind of at the other end of motherhood, becoming an empty nester, and hearing like, okay, you actually do get time, and hearing her story about not baking a turkey. I just laugh so hard. I can totally relate to that. And I'm sure a lot of you guys can too. We just want to do the best we can in all areas. And sometimes we just put way too much on our plates, literally and figuratively, and get overwhelmed. And it's okay to take a step back. It's okay to reevaluate. It's okay to say no. I actually did a whole podcast on that. If you want to go back and listen to that, I'll have that episode in the show notes. Now, Jen was super nice to give all of my listeners an exclusive discount. If you go to cashsystemwallet.com and you use the code GlueStick10, TEN, written out, GlueStick10, you can get 10% off a wallet or multiple wallets of the Cash Envelope System wallets on their website. They are beautiful. I have used 2. And I have been using them for the last few years, and I love them. They're super high quality. I would highly recommend them. So head over to cashsystemwallet.com and use the code GlueStick10 to get a discount on your wallet today. But thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us. If you are enjoying the podcast, I would really, really appreciate if you would leave a review. Just head over to Apple Podcasts, depending on where you're listening to this, and just scroll down after you found Work Life Glue. And at the very bottom, you should be able to leave a review and a rating. And I would appreciate both if you could. Just let me know and let others know why you're enjoying this podcast, what it's doing for you. And that will allow me to know that people are enjoying it and continue to make more episodes. Also, if you are interested in being interviewed, make sure you head over to worklifeglue.com/podcast/apply. And I will be looking for more moms to interview in the future. Thank you guys so much for listening. Go get something done, go love on your family, and go live your dreams. I'll talk to you next time.